All right, let's get started. Let's have a look first at the folder structure. If you want to follow along, you can take the files located in the folder 00-starting and complete the code from there. That contains all of the assets and everything you need. I will be coding in the folder 01 for this lesson, and in this folder you will find the finished files, the files at the end of this lesson. So in your case, you should start from 00 if you want to follow along. All right, well, let's take a look at the folder structure first. It's very simple. So we have an index.html file, which all it does, it includes the phaser library and the script for our game. Then we have a folder named JS, which contains the phaser library and a JavaScript file, which we'll use to code our game. Then we have a folder named assets, and let's have a look at what's in there. So we have a subfolder here called images, and in there we have the sprites that we'll use in our game. And then we have one named audio, which contains a bunch of audio files. All right, so let's go and have a look at game.js. Game.js starts by defining the creation of a new scene named game. Then we have the basic methods of our scene. So we have init, and we have preload, and we have create. And then we have the configuration of our game, which contains the size of the game, how we are rendering, which is with auto, as opposed to canvas or WebGL. We're letting the browser decide how it wants to render our game. We are passing on that scene that we created, and we are setting a title for our game, which we'll show here in the console. And this pixel art flag, you can turn it on and off whether you want the rendering to be pixel perfect. If you set it to false, it will have a little bit of anti-alias, which is when the pixels get a little bit blended. In my opinion, this looks better, but you can change it if you want. All right, so the first thing we'll do is load our assets in our preload method. This will read all of the assets from the disk and place them into the memory of our browser so that they are ready to go when our game begins. You would never want a game where the player is being loaded as you start playing. You want everything to be loaded first, and when the game begins, you want everything to be there. So let's go and load our images. And for that, we will be using this.load.image and type the key or label that we want to give each one of our images. So we have one named background, and the location of these images in all of them is assets/images and then the name of the file, in this case background.png. So the loading the rest of the images is following the same pattern. So I'm going to basically copy and paste this multiple times. Let's expand here so we can see what our images are called. So in this case, this is actually background-city, and then the other ones are building. We also have car, house, and tree. So with this, we should be able now to load any of our images when the game begins. And to make sure that it's all working fine, let's go and add the background. So inside of create, which is executed once after the loading phase, we are going to show our background here. This.add.sprite. So we create a new sprite and we add it to our scene. Now, sprites in Phaser have an origin in the middle, and we actually want to it is easier if we can just move the origin to the top left. So we will move the origin to the top left, but by doing so set origin 0 or 0,0, that will move the origin of the sprite to the top left. And so now we can just position our sprite in the position 0, which is up in here. The key of the background is background. That is what we defined in this part. So let's refresh and see what we are getting. So we are getting our background, and just in case there was any doubts about this, you can see what happens when you don't set that. You're basically setting the middle of the image, the origin, to be on that point. but we want the image presented in this manner. All right, so that is regarding the images. And now the audio, and that's going to be the main topic of this lesson. We have a bunch of files here, and we're going to start by loading them, and then I'm going to discuss something important about audio files. So this.load.audio, so it's quite similar as you can see. And we are going to call these images, they have their name in Spanish, so I'm going to call them in English, and I'm going to add the word audio to their key. So that will help us later in the course when we want to associate them to a particular image. So this tree will be, this image tree will have the audio, that audio file. And in here, this audio slash, in this case, audible.mp3, and I'm going to replicate this line a few times and go and add the rest. So we've got the car, which is this word here. We also have the house, and we have the building, which in this case is this other word, which you will learn when you play the game, edificio. And we're also going to have two more files which are for the correct answer and the wrong answer, but we will talk about that in a bit. So we've got correct, and this is correct.mp3, and then we have wrong, and this will be wrong.mp3, which doesn't exist yet. It will be in the files that you download, but I want to show you how you can generate that file as well. Okay, so why are we loading mp3? There are many audio formats out there. So what's the deal with the audio formats? Back a few years ago, only a couple of years ago, you had to load 2 different file formats if you wanted to get cross-platform support. So in some previous projects, I would have loaded mp3 and OGG, but the web has evolved, and the MP3 used to be a proprietary format, but its patent expired in 2017. So I think it was about that time when all of the browsers added support for MP3. So now if you use MP3, you have pretty much support for all the main browsers, except for Opera Mini, which I don't particularly use or know anyone who uses really, but just so you know that it doesn't work on that browser. So it works on Chrome for Android, which used not to be the case, and it works across platforms. And there is a more modern format than MP3, which is AAC, so it's supposed to be an upgrade of this other format. However, at the time of this recording, it doesn't have full support on Firefox, so we are going to use MP3. It's also good that you know that this format, AAC, is a proprietary format, so it has a patent. There are some restrictions of what you can do with it, but that has to do more with applications that utilize audio. For example, audio exporting or audio editing applications might have some issues with this format. And if you use it now, it's only going to work on Firefox if you have the codec installed as a separate thing in your computer, which it's probably not going to be the case. So we are going to use MP3. Now, where do I find audio files? In the case of this project, I've recorded the voice for the Spanish words, but for the right and wrong answers, I've actually found them here. There's a website called freesound.org, where you can search, for example, for wrong, and you'll get different sounds. So you can find one that you like. And what's really important here is to make sure that you are using something that allows the type of usage that you want. For example, this one is public domain, as it says there. So the license is really important. If you are using something that requires attribution, you will have to give attribution to that author. Some other assets actually don't allow commercial usage. So I always try to filter by Creative Commons 0, which is the same as public domain, which doesn't require any attribution, and you can use it for commercial projects. So you can go here and you can download files. Another website that we quite often use for different projects, and we are not associated with this website in any way, is Envato Market, Audio Jungle. In here we bought a few different sounds for games and for other projects. So those are different sites where you can find free things. Free in this case and paid in this case. Then once you download the file, so let's say I downloaded this wrong.wav file and I have it here. So I'm going to use that sound. I want to have it in MP3 format. And to do that, there is a program which is free and that is cross-platform. It works on all operating systems, and it's Audacity. This is a great tool to get acquainted with if you are making games. And even just the simple things like changing the format of a file or reducing the frequency of a file can help you reduce the size of a file, or cutting extra things can be quite useful skills to have. So I'm going to show you how to do all of those things now. I'm going to load this Audacity file program, and we are going to drag our wrong.wav file, because as you can see, the size of this file is 500 kilobytes. So it's quite big for such a small sound, whereas the size of the other ones is a lot less. So we do want to get this file ready for a game. So I'm going to drag the file to Audacity, and it's going to ask me whether I want to read the file or modify the original file. And I always say that I want to read the original file so that I don't touch the original file and I just modify and export the new file. So I'm going to press OK. And the first thing to notice here is that the file is quite long. The sound only happens at the beginning, and then it has all of this extra empty space. So you can select all of that space, and this can be a very advanced tool if you want it to be, so you can do all sorts of professional video editing. But simple things like this are actually quite useful. So I've selected that area by simply clicking and moving the mouse, and then you can go to Edit and Delete. So we made our file smaller, and we can if we rewind like this, so we can listen to it. Then something else we can do to reduce the size is diminish the project rate, which is the amount of data that the image has, the file has. And what I usually do is that I try one less and I see if the sound is still okay. I think that's still fine. And if you can keep trying, and you might notice that the quality starts to diminish a little bit. And in here we can notice that quality has actually dropped quite a bit, but even then the sound is still okay to use for this project. So I'm going to keep it at this number, and now I'm going to export by going to File, Export Audio, and I'm going to find the location of the folder. So I found the location here, and I'm going to select MP3 format. And I'm going to leave all the other options as they are by default, and press Save and press OK. So now we have our MP3 file here, and you can see that the size now is 5 kilobytes. So we went from 500 kilobytes to 5 kilobytes with, let's see, the sound sounds pretty much the same. If I didn't want that, I could have chosen something else in between, and it would have still been a lot smaller. So I'm going to delete this file, and now I've got all my files. I'm going to show you how you can play a file in Phaser. So let's go back to our project and play one of our audio files when the game starts. For that, I'm going to go to Create, and I have to create a sound object. So for that, this let's put it in a variable, just a sample. This.sound.add, and just how you create your sprites, this is how you create a sound object. Simply pick the key or label of your asset, and then you can do sample sound.play, and that will play the sound. So let's see if this works. So there we go. We got that correct sound going. If you were playing, like, say, a song and you want to stop the song, you can use stop. And if you want to pause, you can use you use pause, and if you want to resume once you've paused, you can use resume. So it's a very easy to use API. And if you want to learn more about sound objects and see how it's actually implemented, you can go to the Phaser repository and go into the source folder sound and the file base sound.js. Will have all of these methods. So if you want to find, for example, the play, you have some things here like detecting whether it's playing or not, and a lot of other variables and other methods as well. So the play method, for example, is here, and you can see how it's all implemented in there. All right, so that's all for this lesson. I will see you in the next video.